helping you with Acorn and RISCOS computing.
Evening all.
Evening.
Just a quick brief announcement. Next month's meeting will be Steve Revel from WROCC, who's going to be probably talking about the Landman FF developments for Samba 2 and Samba 3, which they've been working on, and possibly the work he's been doing on the converting BBC Basic to BNC. More detail will appear on the website in due course.
Yep.
So it's doing a strange thing on the top of my screen. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to talk about the end of the public switch telephone network service and the broadband changes that are connected to it. The end of the public switch telephone network is probably the bigger priority at the moment for most people. Basically, that's your landline phone line, your old analog system. Now, what we're looking at is, but first, before I look at all the various bits, I need to make clear that there are actually two different rollouts taking place at the same time, and they're with different timelines and deadlines. This is where a lot of confusion is going on out there. They're not necessarily related. They happen to be going on with a certain advantage of doing both at the same time, if possible. Say if you're having to do changes later on. The main one is the end of the public switch telephone network, and then the other one is the move to full fibre for the majority of the people in the country. Four general areas I'm going to look at are the vulnerable customers, which keep cropping up as a point, and there's been quite a bit of discussion about these things on the Raw Forum and elsewhere, which is the reason I started doing this talk, and the actual end of public switch telephone network and phone service, and then the broadband changes as a result of it, and what is known as now being called the last chance saloon for anybody who doesn't do what they're supposed to do, migrate. We'll start with vulnerable customer because that's a general one and one of the most important things. But if you're in this category, very important that you ensure your phone or broadband phone supplier or broadband supplier has you registered as such. It is your responsibility to do so. Now, who counts as at risk? Well, that is anyone who has care alarms or telecare alarm system, anyone who has certain health monitoring system, often used for remote monitoring, which might be things like heart monitors, like I have a heart monitor, remote control remotely, and things like dialysis machines that I sometimes have to call back home, and various other bits and pieces that are around. It's mainly around the telecare side of stuff, though. Telecare services primarily are provided by or through a council. Some have third parties. They often outsource it. That's the reason the termination of BSDN got delayed by a year, because they didn't really want to take responsibility for doing it, didn't want to pay for it. They've known they've had to do it for 10 years and just sat on their hands. I'll explain a bit more later on, but basically it's called the delay because the end of PSTN was supposed to be last December, but it's been extended as a result. And basically the government has given the councils and telecare providers a rocket because they haven't been communicating or cooperating. What difference does it make? Well, if you have if you are a risk customer, not only does it help your telecare system be moved to a more modern system, which could be both mobile connected or as a fallback or through the new digital system. The same with alarm system, by the way. If you have a monitored alarm system, you need to make sure it is digital compatible. Mine, for instance, uses none other than a compact module 2. Irish Raspberry Pi compact module 2 for its communication via Wi-Fi to my network. Anyway, one of the things about vulnerable customers, if you're registered, you do tend to get, if you have a line fault, then you often get a priority repair. Obviously, that the terms of that might change slightly when you go fully digital, but it still means you'll get a priority if there's actually a fault on that they provide the phone service for. I've had them out within less than 24 hours when I had a fault on my old fibre to the cabinet line. They even came out on the Saturday to repair it. So it's an essential thing to they sort of get vulnerable customers back online as quickly as possible, in case of emergencies or whatever. There is, as I was saying, the problem about care services. The government, both the previous and the current government, gave rockets to the telecare providers, and they've now, a special joint team is formed of OpenReach, Virgin Media specialists, the team and telecare team providers. Now they coordinate the migration to a digital service for any telecare service called Prove Telecare. This means usually someone from the telecare supplier and the OpenReach will turn up and ensure that it's all working before they leave the person with a new working telecare system on digital. That's part of the thing. The telecare providers are supposed to be combining lists with the internet providers to make sure they're both operating on the same list to prevent what has happened on several occasions, especially with Virgin Media about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, when they started moving people onto their from the old coax network onto full fibre. They went and cut a number of people off because they weren't aware they had telecare services, and that caused all sorts of problems. And the right hand wasn't talking to the left hand, basically. This has hopefully now been resolved, and as I said, they've been running the specialist team for about almost a year now, and most of these problems have been pretty much ironed out. They're working, and they've been given the priority for the rollout as well because of that. They want to get them moved over as quickly as possible. One of the problems was that the telecare providers didn't want to pay for replacing the kit, but as the government pointed out and the internet providers pointed out, said, well, people pay a monthly rental for this kit, so you're being paid for it hand over fist for the thing, so it's within your means to pay for it. And now the telecare providers and the council have decided, okay, yeah, well, we're getting all the money we're making out of it, we'll have to pay for it. They wanted their profit and didn't want to provide the service. Anyway, Ofcom regulations have also said at-risk customers, and the list, by the way, for at-risk can be quite long. It can be for a whole range of services. You have to, when they go and register, they ask you for what things which could be disabled person, could be a whole range of reasons for being categorised at risk. They should be offered a backup battery for the ONT and the router, usually it's a combined one. It's supposed to be for a minimum of 60 minutes, but they're all currently under review as a result of the big storm damage last year from storm, I can't remember, Orwin now, I think it was, up in Scotland, where it lasted for quite a long time. But I think one of the providers, I think it's Vodafone, have now provided one that can do 4 hours of backup, and they keep a small percentage of that backup battery is reserved for being able to charge up your mobile phone. In some cases, they will give you a basic mobile phone, but of course, the other problem is, as per the next point, mobile mast not always having backup batteries to keep, or generators to keep them going when there's a power cut, because often there's a power cut in the same area. And Ofcom have now set new rules, basically ordering the mobile phone mast owners, which aren't necessarily the people like O2 and all the rest of it. A lot of the transmitter masts are now owned by a separate company. It's like the TV mast. They're not all owned by ITV and BBC and that now. They're owned by a separate company, which is complicated matters. To increase the resilience to keep the towers operational. This is also because they're required to do this because of the emergency. If it ever gets out, the emergency digital emergency system that will take over from the old communication that police, ambulance, and the rest of it use is only 10 years late, but there you go for a government project. So the end of the PS10 lines. The deadline for this is the 31st of January. It's not going to be extended. It is not being extended. That is the deadline that's been set. Now, there are 4 basic options to get rid of your landline phone service. If you don't want it anymore, you're just getting junk calls or you're using mobile or whatever. I'll come to that. Be moved to what they call SOTAP in certain areas. Again, I'll be covering that. And digital voice serve, which is a VoIP service, but only from certain ISP, and VoIP services from a third-party provider. Out on the side, the deadline is 31st of January, and it is up to between you and your internet provider to get things sorted out. Don't leave it late. There's already been a warning from at least 2 of the big providers that if they get requests after the 1st of December this year, they may not be able to do it in time for the 31st of January. Landline, or end of line, getting rid of your landline phone, seem to become one of the most popular options going forward, especially from the younger generation who are used to using mobile phones all the time. As they tend to use mobile phones nowadays, and it's often cheaper to use your mobile phone because you've got most of the plans have inclusive minutes of some description for both calls and for data. Where with a landline phone, you're paying for the rent or for whatever plan, plus the call charges, connection charges, and all sorts of things. So it can be quite expensive in landline. I got rid of my landline phone when I went full fibre because I was only getting I think I got 2 genuine calls in the previous 8 weeks before I got rid of it. All the rest were telemarketing calls or spammers. But obviously everybody's different. The important note, reasonable in bold here, don't just stop your analog phone if you've got a broadband service from either ADSL or fibre to the cabinet you have on the line. You need to think very carefully what you do, and I'll be covering more of that in a little bit. The reason for that, I say that basically, is that if you cancel your analog phone line and you've got broadband, your broadband goes as well. You lose a lot. You've got to do it the right way round. I'll come to that in a bit. Could have some complications. Now, SOTAP is, and so ADSL. SOTAP is Single Order Transitional Access Product. It is, as it says, transitional. And Single Order ADSL is also connected to it. Single Order Generic Ethernet Access is what a lot of people who are on fibre to cabinet, well, everybody who's on fibre to the cabinet will be moved to SOGEAR. But SOTAP is a transitional service, I should say, only intended to be available in areas where there is no full fibre or slow gear service. Formerly fibre to the cabinet. There are still some areas where you can't even get that. You really have a bare bones copper that's too far away from the exchange or whatever. It's really only became available in November 2025. And it is strictly intended to stop gap service until either full fibre or SOGA service becomes available in that area for a phone service. And for a phone service area, it is not a VoIP service. They bought some special kit in the exchange that basically takes over the copper line and turns it into a sort of halfway house between fibre and the old analog. So basically it converts the line into something else to do it for at the exchange place. I know several people have been moved on to this already. You don't need to do anything. They normally send you a letter saying we're being upgraded or being moved. And they move you from your landline line onto SOTAP. If you've got no broadband, that's what they're trying to do as an initial step. But longer term, you'll get moved eventually. One of the alternatives once they get rolled out in that area. This can also apply for the ADSL part, as I'll explain a bit later. Digital voice is basically a VoIP service, but using a proprietary system. General providers include BT Consumer or Retail. Keep changing the name around. EA, then Virgin Media, Vodafone, TalkTalk, and Sky. They're the principal ones. Excuse me. Excuse me. You usually have to use their own routers for this service because you have to plug it into the back of their router. If you wish to use your own router, you might find your ISP will not provide the necessary details to you with your own router, and you might need an ATA adapter of some description. There are various ones around. Also, vulnerable customers will usually get an ATA adapter free if they need it, and if they ask for it. Way around this issue, if you can use your own router as a Wi-Fi access point and turn off the Wi-Fi on the new ISP router and just use that for the digital voice connection, or you can do some combination around that. It can cost more than third-party VoIP providers, both for monthly rental cost and call cost. You still have to pay some sort of cost. You have about 4 or 5 different plans. For instance, one is sort of you pay a £2 fee a month and you pay 20 odd pence per call you make. But they also do some that include so many minutes or whatever, various deals they do. But the monthly rental cost is often higher that you can get through VoIP providers. VoIP providers, well, they're basically voice over internet protocol. That's what it stands for. It's a digital voice service over a broadband line provided by your third-party providers. They can be provided over a full fibre to the premises, fibre to the home, fibre to the building. I've seen it described all ways, so I've all 3 there. And what is still called or known as fibre to the cabinet, with local to local green cabinet. These are now becoming gear lines without an analog phone service, and that the default that people will be moved to that. If you can't go to, or full fibre is not available. There are a lot of VOI providers available. Search online and you'll find hundreds of things. Some of the better known ones are A&A, which Andrews and Arnold. They're probably one of the better known ones. Though VIP Phone, another well-known one. Phoneline, Vonage is also another well-known one. Fletcher Talk and Office Internet will provide VIP services. All different prices, different costs. You need to look at them and find out which is the most suitable for your particular requirements. You may want more international calls, you may want local calls or thing. Just that's a side point. There is no such thing as a local phone number anymore. Or no such thing as a STD code, standard dialing anymore. So you're a bit bored. We used to put your code in before you dial, say London or whatever. Don't make any difference. It's the full number now, like you do on the mobile. Longer term, they are talking about Ofcom and that have talked about that number will become, when you have a number, it will become your personal number. In other words, if you move to a different part of the country, you still keep the same phone number. And I've always seen it happening with a couple of businesses I know. I've been able to keep that moved from one part of the area to another part of West Yorkshire, and they've got the same phone number, even though it's from a completely different exchange. Some of these VI providers will also provide an app, what's for your mobile phone, that allows the call to be received or made via your mobile device. That means, you can have your start your phone, but if you're out and about, you can still get a call sent directed to you out to your mobile from your VoIP service, sort of thing. And that's the way some people do it. As I say, the cost of VoIP service can be quite cheap. Sometimes you have to pay for a fee to port in the phone number onto their system. Some don't charge, some charge, say, a one-off tenner. Some they don't bother charging that, they just charge you a small monthly rental. I think A&A were doing £1.80 something pence a month plus the call, which were cheap. Depending on which package you take on them. They all have different packages and all have different the offers on, and which are changing and more of them appearing all the time. Now, one of the suggested options to get around the possibility of losing your broadband at the same time as your phone line is there's nothing stopping you get a VoIP account with a temporary number which they can provide you with first, so you can try it out. Try out that service. Most of them allow a monthly rolling thing. So you can try out one. Yeah, it's okay. We're happy with the quality of the line and all the rest of it. They test it works for you and what you're wanting to do. And then when you're ready, arrange to migrate your landline number to the VoIP service one provider. If you do that currently with an ADSL provider or a fibre to the cabinet, it will seize your broadband service automatically. That's why you have to time it to a migration to full fibre or to SOGIA thing. your internet provider is not involved in that apart from doing a move to full fibre to these. So yeah, the BIP service is basically your responsibility. Enjoy the BIP service. This is what a lot of people have done if they decide to keep a phone line and don't want to just go mobile only. So that's one of the most common options people are taking if they're going to try and keep a phone line. A topic that crops up all the time, using your existing deck or wired phones. Yes, you can. In majority of cases, unless it's a really, really old phone or really old deck system. You have to be more than 10 years. I think you have to be more than 10 years old if you're going to have a problem. And even then, they will often work. So you can still potentially use your deck phone. You can still use your wire phone. You don't have to go buying digital phones, or you can do, and the digital phones will give you even higher quality call quality in terms of sound and facilities on them. But you don't have to. You can use your existing things if you want initially and then change your mind later on, or basically do as you want. In terms of wired phones that you want to continue using, you would need to do what is called voice reinjection. Note your ISP and broadband installer will not do this for you. It is a self-install option, and there's lots of videos on YouTube showing how various people do it. At the end of the talk, I will be giving some URLs, and one of them will be a link to one that did it. You can do it several different ways, but it works. So voice reinjection, that does sound a bit painful, doesn't it? How do you do it? Well, basically, you need an ATA, analog terminal adapter, to convert the connection to the usual RJ11 type connection from your router to a new extension socket. This is the easier way of doing it. Not to your old master socket, because your master socket may still have power coming to it unless the installer has removed your old copper line, because there's over 50 volts coming down each wire. You don't want to connect it up because it will feed back and all sorts of undesirable results will turn up. This is the simplest way of doing it. You can now get a what they're calling a voice reinjection faceplate that will replace the master socket faceplate. If you get one of them, you don't have to worry about the copper line coming from outside. It effectively disables it. The simplest way, a lot of people and a lot of the videos show this method. You transfer the wire from within the master socket to a new extension box, which you put beside your master socket, and you just plug it into that. Just like basically your router becomes the master socket, and you just create a new box. But the advice is be careful. Make sure you don't make any mistakes. It is straightforward, relatively straightforward. I know a few people have done it, and use common sense. There's not a problem. In my case, I haven't got the old copper wire that took it down when I got to take it away when I got full fibre. That is down to the installer where they're prepared to do that. Some will do it, some won't. Now, that covers a lot of what's going on with the phone thing. but it's important to make clear the deadline is the 31st of January next year. Ideally, you need to start looking at moving, especially if you've only got a phone line only service, the sooner the better. I'll explain one other thing coming up. One of the things with broadband changes as a result of all this is they've now got the one-touch switch service for residential customers, which means you have to do less work and the provider does most of the work. Basically, you contact your new supplier or what you want to move to, you contact the new supplier and they do all the work of sorting out, contacting your old supplier, say you're moving, etc., sort out transfer of the services, etc., from one to the other. Like for instance, from an open file provider to an alternate net service or Virgin Media, because they do different networking, different wholesale networks. Where previously, if you want to do that, you had to contact, say, Virgin Media to cancel their service, then you have to contact your OpenReach provider, which might be, say, PlusNet, EE, whoever, and arrange to take on that. So it used to be a lot more work, and you used to have to try and make sure one actually terminated when you wanted to. With the one switch service, it's all done by the one company. They have to coordinate it, sort out the migration, the termination of the old service, etc., etc. There is a version for one touch which for businesses now on trial, and that's expected to go live by the end of the year. So they're also going to move over to the same sort of system. They're just trying to sort out thing. All internet providers, small and big, are supposed to use this service, one touch switch service. It's now in the regulation and is specified by Ofcom. They must join it. One or two of the small providers have sort of tried to ignore it and not do it, and they've had their wrists slapped or been fined in some cases because they've been stopping the migration going on successfully. The biggest problem they've had with this is where somebody was on a service, I don't know, an old Tiscali service, and they don't know who their new current owner of Tiscali broadband is, and that can sometimes put delays in because they're not showing in the database properly. Most of those issues have now been, after a year, are now being resolved. Over 2 million people have been migrated through the service without any real problems. I've recently switched for it, and 2 days later I've moved from one system to the other, so it does work. Now, another thing to be important thing which is connected to the end of the PSTN line, ADSL services are going. End of. Because they relied upon the copper service using different frequency to your voice. If you're unlucky enough to be in an area where you can't be moved to full fibre or gear service, then you will be put onto a SOTAP service that runs what they call SOTAP, so A as an ADSL, again, which is a strictly stopgap. They reckon there might only be a couple of thousand people on the ADSL. They don't really want them. A lot of providers are not going to support ADSL at all, full stop. A lot of them already dropped the service. There's only a few suppliers still doing ADSL. Fibre to the cabinet, where you can't be migrated to full fibre, you'll be moved to gear, which is basically if full fibre is available at your address, you'll be moved to full fibre. Basically, because they want to build to full fibre, so possibly it's cheaper, more economical, and more reliable. And in quite a few parts of the country now, they stop sell, and they can't sell also their services, fibre to the cabinet or ADSL services, and the old analog phone services can't be moved as well. So basically the push is everybody gets moved to full fibre as soon as possible. But it is not, because of the overlap, some people will remain on SO gear after the deadline for all the changes for phone line. Because the full fibre rollout has got 2 or 3 years to run yet. One of the things of this is Openreach have already started physically closing some of the exchanges. I think the first 17 got closed relatively about a month or so ago. Next batch of 170 odd. And the preparation, it's not always straightforward because the exchanges might not have an Openreach kit. They may have lease line provided by third-party companies, going to companies or councils or whatever. Mobile phone providers often have equipment in some of the exchanges. But Openreach do not own the exchanges and haven't done for several years. They sold them all, and then they had to lease them back, which were cheaper. But by 2030, 2032, at the latest, they need to get rid of 5,000 plus exchanges. Otherwise, they're going to have to pay a lot more money for them. Another reason they're pushing the full fibre, because the number of exchanges will go down to about 500, somewhere between 500 and 800, they reckon, for the entire country. Because full fibre doesn't necessarily go back to your local exchange, it goes back to what they call a head-end exchange, which might be some distance away. Mine doesn't go back to Wakefield, it goes back to, like, it's Sheffield or Leeds. It could be even further afield. Depends on where they've got the connection to. So it can be quite some distance away. Full fibre doesn't worry about the distance. It's not affected by it. So that's the thing. But the ADSL point is important. There's still 1 or 2 people stopping it along in difficult areas. So they'll end up on SO ADSL until that problem can be solved. In some of these very, very awkward areas, they may never get upgraded to full fibre, and alternatives are being looked at. They may get a mobile broadband offered to them, or something like a satellite broadband service of some description, which may or may not be something like Starlink or another European version that are being developed. I can't remember now what it's called now, as an alternative. It's just not economic to run the full fibre out to some of these very obscure places, and that's part of the problem. There are some areas that are being funded by Project Gigabit, which is a £5 billion investment by the previous government and this government to move people over to full fibre, fibre-based services in various parts of the country where they're not considered economic, commercially viable to move them. So they're getting different people getting Openreach, whereas altnets have been getting contract to fill in some of these gaps, and that. And a lot of the work has been done in various parts of the country. Virgin Media now, most of the stuff I've covered already is primarily connected with Openreach. and all their providers. Virgin Media is another wholesale network, and they're slowly moving their users over from the old DOCSIS coax cable networks, from the old people like Telewest, NTL, Blue Yonder, and goodness, no, Cable and Wireless, and various other network to a proper fibre optic based network. Seems to have slowed down somewhat lately because they've been reviewing their spending. Been new bosses at one of their sharp big investors, and they've decided to completely review the work and the money being spent. But they will eventually have to replace DOCSIS because there's a lot of contention on, and the coax network is long past needing replacement. Next fibre without the T, and next, a lot of people put it next fibre, it's actually next fibre without the T. Got 2/3 owned by the same investors as Virgin Media O2. They are filling some of the gaps in the Virgin Media area, but with a proper full fibre based service. But they currently only have 2 customers on their network, Virgin Media itself and giffgaff have recently become customers on their network. giffgaff are actually owned by O2, so I suppose it's logical they become part of their network. They are, when they're on the full fibre network, they're running a very similar setup to OpenReach, with slightly different quirks and various places with the actual installation. And that next fibre were going to become a wholesale network. In other words, they're going to make their network available to be shared by the people in their ducts and all the rest of it. That seemed to have been placed on hold, which is why only Virgin Media and giffgaff on it at the moment. But they are quite aggressively rolling out and filling gaps in. They've done it around some of the estates, around new estates around here. They often say when you ask them, we're installing Virgin Media, well, it's the same team that go installing Virgin Media actually doing the work for next fibre, and they're just sharing resources. Also, over the past year, a number of the altnets have been consolidated into big organisations, and this will probably carry on because the altnets have been spending lots and lots of money, borrowing money, investing thing, trying to build up customer bases, and some are now consolidating into big organisations to help keep their debt pile under control and become bigger competitors. One of the biggest possible takeovers will be, if Virgin Media get their way, is to take over the Netomnia wholesale network, which provides you fibre and WROCC full fibre networks. And various parts, they don't overlap in most cases. They're only a small percentage of the sites overlap. So there's a lot going on there. Basically, everybody's moving to full fibre because that's the future. We're not at the bottom of the pile in terms of Europe, in terms of moving full fibre, unlike America, United States, land of the free, and that. A lot of people still only getting ADSL services, just on copper, and no real very little competition in America, just in the United States anyway. Which is the big 4 telecom companies basically carving up the country. So we're actually doing quite well. The end target for full fibre in this country is somewhere around 2032-ish. The official figure that we're supposed to get to, I think I've covered that, yeah. I'll go on the page. Much up there. The official figure is that in the region of 85% of the OpenReach network will be full fibre enabled by the end of this year, and they hope to reach getting on for 95 to 98% by 2030, and they aim for 99 by 2032. They'll never get 100%, they reckon. Got to lose in some areas, some small areas, to one of the altnets or X5 or whatever. Some areas have 2 or 3 different providers, wholesale providers, OpenReach, Virgin Media, or Nexfibre, and something like City Fibre, or on the wholesale, third-party wholesale network in the street. So you can sometimes have a lot of competition, but make it very price competitive. A quick sip of tea. There are quite a few things to think about. If you've still got an analog only phone service, this is where your pure phone service. OpenReach have been increasing the line rental charges that they charge providers, and their provider then passing it on. And basically by October, the line rental charges are going up by 100%. 1st of April, they went up 20%, they're going for another 40% on the 1st of July, and a final 40% on the 1st of October. Basically, an effort to get through. It's costing you a lot of money to stay on an analog phone service, just for being difficult. And they've done this, and it already has started having an effect. And because it's affecting the providers who get charged all this, it's encouraging them to speed up the migration of people on ordinary phone lines. It doesn't necessarily affect anybody who's on a phone and broadband service, because the rental charge is usually built into the price you're paying for the broadband. At the moment, there's been no hinting in the charge, but that may change. They really are pushing at the moment for the analog phone service to be got rid of by next end of January. One big area that's a problem, well, more than one, but if you happen to, hopefully not too many people in this situation, we have 2 different suppliers currently, one for your analog phone service, a different one for your broadband. Expensive way to do it, but anyway, you need to prioritize getting this sorted with your supplier as to who's going to be your primary supplier. Going forward, Utility Warehouse, for example, seems to be one of the biggest people in this category, but there are others where they bought a service for the phone. They kept the phone service with BT and got Johnson Wales for their broadband. It used to be quite a clever idea, not all the eggs in one basket, etc., but now it's going to become a problem, because if the provider of your phone decides to move you, they won't necessarily know that you've got broadband from another supplier. They terminate your analog phone service. Oops, your broadband line gone. That's why it is down. Theoretically, people like Utility Warehouse, if they're the people doing it, because they used to do a lot of the deal where they get gas and electric and all sorts of things mixed in together to try and save you money, should coordinate it all. But I've not heard much from them saying what they're doing, how they're going to do it. They seem to be leaving a lot of it to the individual to sort it out, which isn't a good idea. But there doesn't seem to be much said on that at the moment, but 1 or 2 people have been querying it in various places, how they do deal with this problem. another example was somebody was saying, well, they've got their broadband phone service from, sorry, their phone service from BT itself, and they're getting their broadband they bought from Zen. So who sorts it out? And the general advice is you need to go shift everything across to Zen, and the one company involved dealing with it all at once. But you need to do that sooner than later, otherwise all sorts of the right hand don't know what the left hand's got. I can often save a lot of money by doing so. The thing is, another point out, remember you decide to cancel your analog phone line only, and you have broadband, ADSL, fibre to cabinet, well, with the same supplier, then you will lose your broadband service that they're linked by the phone number. You would need to be migrated. Instead, what you need to do is migrate to a SOGA service, which gives you a broadband service without a phone service, or to full fibre, which is the preferable option where it's available. Some areas that is your only option. You have to move to full fibre because they aren't allowing any more SOGA connection. Depending on whether you're in a stop sale area. Just for clarification, the stop sale area is basically an exchange where they're saying, I think they allow 12 months from announcing they're going to make a stop sale. That may be changing. But that 75% of that exchange has got full fibre capability, or availability, I should say, rather. So then stopping to the services because you should be able to get full fibre in most cases. There are some exceptions to that, and I'll mention that in a bit. As you can see, it's quite a minefield, and the analog phone service changes should be top of your list at the moment to deal with any problems and decide what you want to do. Ofcom, the communications regulator, said that a phone number should be recoverable for up to 30 days after you lose it to help with a transfer to a VoIP provider. That is the fallback. So if you do lose it, migrate it, you have 30 days, provided there is a caveat to that, that the number is actually correctly registered to the address you have or have. There have been one or two cases where the phone providers, usually BT, records don't quite match up with the address that they were looking at, which is often the Royal Mail one. And this is often a big problem around people have flats or a building which is now being split from one house into 2 or 3 floors of things, and the address is recorded as flat 2 on one system and 2 flat on the other system, and they don't match up precisely. That can cause confusion and delays, which means it goes past the 30 days. Not very often it happens, but it can happen. So you need to be aware of that and push the various people to make sure we got the right record. The other thing is, in most cases, you do not have to wait to the end of your existing broadband contract to be moved to full fibre or SOGA, especially if one is staying with the same internet provider. By the way, a lot of internet providers, or Ofcom now say internet provider should be called communications provider. So if you see that name used branded about, it basically just means a different name for your internet provider. Most will quite happily migrate you, but we start a new contract, 12, 24, 18 months, 24 months, or even roll month by month, depending on the provider. A number of the bigger internet providers are offering to pay early exit fees up to £300. Check the current offers because they change ever so often. But you can't do that between BTE and PlusNet because they're all part of the same company. But you need to be aware that the contribution, and this is where a lot of people got themselves into a bit of a twist because they've not read the terms properly. Who reads the terms? That the contribution is to an early exit fee is normally done as a credit on your new provider's bill. You don't get it back as cash. You get it basically they pay your bill off, and they often require to see your final invoice to confirm how much your provider proof of the exit fees. They stop people fiddling it. There sometimes has been reported been the odd argument that the final bill they've got from the old supplier doesn't say it termination fees, exit fees, not using, and there have been arguments about the terms of the words used. I think most of those issues have now been ironed out. But some providers can be a little bit more picky. You don't really want to pay out. They offer a £300 to get you to move them, but then they want to honour it fully. But you can get an early exit fee, so up to £300. So you could move to a different provider early, you can do it cheaper. And one thing to bear in mind is full fibre in quite a few cases is now cheaper than staying on your old fibre to the cabinet line. PlusNet, for instance, it's cheaper to move to full fibre than it is to stay on the old service. So another incentive, and apparently OpenReach have just increased those offers by offering even more discounts. So there might be some more savings to be made soon because they're pushing to get more people faster onto full fibre as well. So that's a lot of what's going on, but also there's other things here. So here, 80-90% of gigabit service. Now the reason I say gigabit instead of full fibre, because the gigabit service includes full fibre itself. Coax can provide up to 1 gigabyte per more. And the various OpenReach altnets and Virgin Media can all provide a gigabit service or higher. There are some services now offering 5 gigabit, 8 gigabit download. I think there's one offering 20 odd gigabit now. They have experimented with 50 gigabit. Those higher ones are probably more intended for small businesses, etc. But the options are there if you've got the money. And some have a choice of wholesale provider. Say, on this estate where I live now, I've got OpenReach and I've got NextFibre, and I understand City Fibre being around the estate looking at all the poles and ducting and all the rest of it. They come round, and Netamania have also had a look round. I don't think they'll be coming round now because NextFibre have already moved them because they'll be part of the same company shortly. Some of the problem there is for getting a gigabyte service, whether it's from OpenReach, one of the altnets, Virgin Media, is, as one or two people who are probably listening to this well know, multiple dwelling units, or MDUs, flats and apartments to you and me, often where approval has to be obtained by use of a way leave from the landlord or freehold owner to the provider. The problem is, yes, the landlord can decide they will only allow only a certain wholesaler to provide service to connect to that building or those flats. They might say, well, we only want Virgin Media in the place. We don't want anybody else. And you don't get a choice. You have to either get the service from Virgin Media or from OpenReach or HopeNet or whatever. And that's it. Your choice is restricted. There have been suggestions that a new piece of legislation that if it goes through Parliament, if it gets that far, to amend leaseholder rights to allow them to be able to get, potentially say, we want one and we want from a provider of our choice. Landlords can actually set their own mini internet company up, and they will then provide the services to the tenants. There aren't many of them, but one or two of the bigger ones can actually do it. In fact, Persimmon Homes actually have their own broadband company, and for the first year you have to go through them for the broadband service, and then after the year they allow you to go elsewhere. Similar issues apply to housing association properties. One of the other problems that's occurred, because sometimes it takes a while to get the wayleave through or whatever, people like OpenReach or AltNet or whatever have been rolling out their full fibre in that area, and it's taken too long for the landlord to get back. So by that time, they've moved on to another area. Sometimes they'll come back, sometimes they'll put it somewhere near the back of the pile, or when they're coming back around that area, or they've got a bit more money to spend in that available, they come back and do that area. Private roads and estates are also, yes, another issue. Again, it's to do with wayleave, because it's a private road or estate. They're not adopted roads, so they are the roads and the estates are owned by the people on that estate. And they have to provide agreement for the ducting or poles to be installed, and may have to make a contribution to the cost. Depends. Same as if you have the connection needs to go across private land. One housing association has got itself into a bit of a legal tussle because they were trying to stop a full fibre connection coming across. They owned a very small piece of land, and for some bizarre reason they decided to not allow that particular company to roll its full fibre across. They only wanted somebody else to provide it, and they didn't want to provide the full fibre to their property. And it went round and round in circles, laughed to her. It still hasn't been resolved. And it may be going to court by now, by heading to court. But it felt like a deliberate blocking move. Some people trying to make more money out of it. They do. The people, when you go across private land, they do, and landlords would actually get paid by the provider. They get paid for access to the property or whatever. Same thing for private land. There are agreed tariffs, but there can be local agreements that can be more or less. It's often easier and usually quicker where full fibre is available to have it installed by the old telegraph pole. I still call them telegraph pole, but a lot of people call them telephone poles now. I'm from an age we still remember telegraph poles. It's a lot cheaper if it can be done that way. If your existing phones to line broadband is via underground connection, then some properties from the 1960s and 70s had what are called armoured cable directly buried in the ground. In fact, Virgin Media were doing that, or the cable company for sometimes doing that. They were putting a cable in a very, very shallow ditch, not inducting a very shallow ditch, often no more than about 6 inches below ground. And then it becomes a problem when they've now got to try and upgrade them. Direct armour cable, the only way around it is to either have those premises resupplied by poles, cheaper way, or if they have to do it adopting, then of course it costs a lot more money, and if it involves what they call civil, which it might be on the street in the pavement, then you have to get council approval, which can take 4 or 5 weeks if you're lucky to get through the planning system. That's if you're lucky. It might be changing. The government proposing to cut a lot of that out. Where ducts, they will check to see if they are blocked at all. If not, they can pull the fibre cable through. Usually requires a site survey. If they're blocked at all, then there may have to be civil work, depending on where it's on the highway, pavement, or on your property. They can only fix the blockages or thing if it's on your land with your permission, or the landlord permission if it's a landlord. If it's on the highway, obviously I need to get a request from the council. Sort of thing. So it's all those things have a potential impact on getting rolled out to full fibre. Some places where it was armour cable, they have just gone around and put poles up because it's a lot easier. I think it's about £400 a pole compared with about £2,500 more or more to put new ducting in. Which is why Southport, I think it's Southport, have now gone to the back of the queue because they objected to pole going in for the entire thing. Most of their estates were underground. They were one of the first places in the country to have most of their services all underground. But at the same time, they're now complaining they're not getting full fibre. You can't win. They have, if you have full fibre installed by OpenReach, AltNet, Virgin Media, including Nextfibre, they each have their own methods option for the installation. OpenReach is probably most straightforward, and some of the AltNets are pretty much just similar. Basically, you enable a splicing point on the outside of your property, feed a fibre cable into your property for the whole onto an ONT. I'll give you some photographs of that a bit later. People like Virgin will do it slightly differently, and there's a difference between Virgin and giffgaff. Virgin will feed the fibre all the way into your property directly into their own router, and do it that way. giffgaff, running on the Nextfibre, do it the same way as OpenReach. They're doing it in a box to an ONT. That seems to be becoming the preferred option for most of them. The AltNets are doing pretty much the same. Gives a bit more flexibility. You do not need to have the ONT. Just to be clear, an ONT is an optical network terminal. It's installed where your current master socket is. Also, despite videos and talks on it, your router does not need to be necessarily next to your, close to your connection. So in the OpenRoach case, as it's just a normal Ethernet cable from the ONT box on the wall to your router. So as long as you can get an Ethernet cable, you can connect the two up. You can have it thing. For example, my phone line originally came in through the front of the property, and I actually wanted the ONT and the full fibre stuff to come in the back into this office where I'm talking from now thing. And as it happened, I used to have work from home, and I had an open reach master socket here. So yes, he just ran the cable around. Fibre does not like sharp bends, so they have to go around any bends. They have to do it as a loose thing around the edge, so it doesn't no sharp bend in the cable. Fibre doesn't like that. But I did it quite happily. It can depend on the installer. They won't put it necessarily high up because they're not allowed to for health and safety reasons. Especially the customer splice point, which is on the outside, they need relatively easy access to it. The CSP, which is the bit on the outside that connects the cable coming from your pole underground ducting to go into your property. It's relatively straightforward, relatively painless. It can usually be done within the hour, certainly. Myself and the neighbour, we were done at the same time by the same guy, because he did some of the same work at the same time. It reduced to both of us being done within an hour and a half. And we were live instantly. So it's relatively straightforward. I have written an article about that, which is all in one of the previous WROCC newsletters. Other question is, do I have to have a 900 megabyte service if I get full fibre? Well, the answer is no. They promote it all, but you don't actually have to have it. There are various speed options normally offered. Varies by supplier, 80, 74 even, 100, 145, 150, 300, 330 in some cases, 500, 900, 1000. At a common download speed offered by OpenReach suppliers, you can get a 1.8 gig service from EE if you want to. All these are download speed. Uploads are only proportionate, I suppose. So for the say the 300 meg service, it was sort of like normally about 50 meg upload. 500 meg was sort of like 75 meg, and for 900 it was 110. Businesses have slightly different figures. Altnets, nearly all of them, in fact Virgin pretty much the same, will give you the same speed down and up. So if you have a 300 meg service down, you get a 300 meg up as well. Are full fibre contended? Yes, but it's not normally an issue because it's high speed, unless you got excuse me. Unless you have a lot of people, it's 1 from 1 to 32. I think on the OpenReach one, I think it is. Let's all say half those people suddenly downloading at maximum speed all the time, then nobody's going to notice it. It's because the system will balance anything out. There's been no reports of congestion on full fibre, except Virgin Media, where they have on your coax service where they've got congestion in various parts of the country. Another reason they're moving to full fibre, to get rid of that congestion. Offers are available, say. PlusNet will still do a 76, I think they call it, which is really 80. The reason I say 900 against 1,000, all those lines will be provisioned as a 1 gigabyte 1,000 line but the system at the exchange or the internet provider will restrict it to the speed you purchased. And there's no 10-day bedding in period. That's a load of nonsense. For full fibre, you pretty much get it instantly. When they plugged mine in, when I first got it, I think I went for the one. I went for the 145 from rightly. And they plugged it in, turned on the router. I instantly got one. Well, I was getting more. I was getting 150 plus, which is quite normal. Instantly, there was no 10-day period or anything like that, not nonsense, bedding in. One thing I haven't mentioned is that with Sogia, nobody, when you go onto that, there isn't a full 40 gigabyte service. It is effectively 80 for everybody, and it's in actual fact it averages out about 67. So everybody will get the fastest possible speed on that line thing. As I say, altnets and Virgin have other options potentially available. Some of the altnets are doing 8 gigabyte, 2 gigabyte, and all sorts of offers. And obviously, it depends on the prices. There's a lot of competition out there. But to just say, you don't need to get 900 meg. One of the most popular rates at the moment is the 145. Quite a nice price to speed ratio. 300 seems to be becoming very popular. With that, most people can do majority of things. You really need the fast when we're doing gaming, downloads, and all sorts of things like that. When you think that what do you call it, 4H Ultra 4K video only take about up to 50 megabyte stream. If we ever get 8K, then that's like 100 plus, but or more. So you can get it, but you won't notice it. It just means things come down a bit quicker. Like Windows updates and whatever will come down a lot quicker, but then it can be more time installing it on the machine for the download. So there's pros and cons, but you don't have to get the thing. Look at the prices, look at the offers, and pick the one that suits you. And you can always allow you to move from one speed to another upwards, not necessarily downward, depending on the company with that one, and how close to the end of your contract you are. Don't let, one thing is, there's an awful lot of people who have not renewed their contract, so they're now paying out of contract prices for their broadband and phone services, which are often ridiculously high. So never let yourself go out of contract with that sort of stuff. Shop around if you have to. Now, the last chance saloon I mentioned, and this really is a last chance saloon with to cover for the bad for the situation. If some people haven't moved to digital phone services or whatever by the 1st of February. They're starting testing a new fallback to this service called the EVA, Emergency Voice Access, on the 3rd of August. They start to work on that for a short period. They're doing it in 2 areas, which were the original testing locations for full fibre, Salisbury and Melbourne Hall. As long as the trial is successful, which there's no reason it shouldn't be, but it will be the fallback on the 1st of February 2027 for anyone who has failed to be migrated to a digital service for Phoneline, for phone services, for various reasons. it's a highly restricted facility. We'll only allow certain types of phone calls, primarily 999, 112 type call, and calls of critical national infrastructure. I'm assuming from the description of that it's things like you can contact your water and electric and gas people, and potentially certain other structure. They haven't defined that what the CNI is yet. It's being laid out in legislation. But if you had any broadband on it at that point, it'll be gone. That's the intention. This is literally the last chance saloon. If you haven't moved, this is what happened. And the reason that they've been warning, some of the ISPs have been warning that if you haven't got it booked in before the 1st of December, you may not be migrated in time for the end of the service. And this is being put in by Openreach as a last chance to get out of jail, basically, more into a better term. And it is really it's also to cover themselves, because there's almost certainly going to be somebody who has been somehow missed or whatever, because there's so many. The last I think I heard beginning about during last month was up to 2 million people still needed to be migrated who had phones only services, and they're working flat out prioritising moving them as quickly as possible. Some people come, when did this happen? We don't know anything about it. Well, I'm not sure whether they're blind, not listening, or what, but it's been advertised, especially for the vulnerable customers. That's been over the past year. There's been TV adverts about it, trying to get people to make sure they notify their internet provider, getting their neighbour to help do that, etc. The mood and the phone line service have been promoted on TV and various adverts, and leaflets going out, emails have been going out to a lot of people. There's only so much that can be done. So it's been on TV, it's been on radio, and even they've got local authorities running what do you call it? Presentation talks, demonstrations, walking places to find out more about it in various parts of the country. I'm sure there'll be a more intensive advertising campaign shortly to try and push people. But the later you leave it, the more risk you run. So the primary is to sort out your phone line. That's the priority, if you still want one. Just some couple of pictures of what a CSP, this is Openreach stuff. But some of the boxes have actually got smaller now, so they may be smaller than what they are here now. On the pictures, these are the ones in my property. Openreach CSP. Now they call it customer service point. It used to be customer splice point, but it's on the outside of the property. One cable comes in, that's the one on this case, the one on the left comes in with the cable. And they wrap it like a circular thing inside, they wrap it up and they splice the cable and attach it to the smaller cable, smaller fibre cable that actually come from in there. One on the right there that goes through, and then will come into the back of that Openreach box on the ONT, and that provides the fibre connection. As you can see, the LAN cable is the cable that will connect to your router. It has to be powered, so you have to have a power socket within reach of the power cable. Power thing, which I think the power cable is about, I'm right, about two meters or so to power plug thing. So saying they have the lights on tell you when it's live power on, which means you're connected to the thing, and the LAN is connected to the network internal. Important thing to make, if you ever move property, you leave these two things in place. They're not yours, they belong to OpenReach. And the same applies if you've got one from an AltNet or Virgin Media, they belong to the provider. Unfortunately, there have been cases where some people have taken the box, the OpenReach one, you can see on the outside there, all the thing, and taking the power cable, or just taking the power cable, the power adapter. No use to them because they can't use it in a new place. It's good. The fibre line is connected via your serial number on the box. That's how, instead of having a phone number, you have a serial number that identifies your circuit thing. So no, you're trying to move it to another place because you won't be able to use it. The OpenReach box has actually got smaller. I think that's a Nokia one that's on the picture there. I think they're now using a new one called Adtran. I think, or they're making that one available, and that's smaller than that box, but also it's made of 90% of recyclable material. So they're trying to be more environmentally friendly. Thing in flats and that, they use a different type of box and what they call invisible fibre, which is instead of being a little black cable or whatever, it'll be like almost a light colour cable which can be put around the room and attached to your skirting board or whatnot, and it's virtually invisible to people. Because some people don't want black cable showing against the skirting board, they're now providing that as a fairly standard. So all that is going on. Now I know I've covered an awful lot of stuff here. No doubt thing.
May I ask a question now, Chris? If that's okay.
Here I have provided some useful websites. I will put these I'll get these put in the newsletter. But the very bottom one is a video of how to do the voice re-injection. Get the right name right. Don't think that sounds rude, but anyway, voice re-injection. And there's different sites there. We can find out whether you've got OpenReach full fibre or you'd have to go around. You can get clues from the BidB UK site whether you might have a third-party site available, a third AltNet available, or Virgin Media or whatever. Other sites there perhaps useful information about prices, comparing what's available, and you put your postcode in there to tell you what's sort of available at your address. The one network is what used to be known as the WROCC.org. Been taken up by a different firm. You can find out all the roadworks, not just for broadband phone service, you can find it for electric, gas, you name it. Provided the local authority and the organisation notify them. It's a national system used by local authorities up and down the country. So that's a useful thing. But yes, thank you. And then general any questions? You had a question, Rick? Let me close down the share screen.
Well, no, don't. No.
I'll open it up again. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. You may have mentioned it, but I missed it. What is one of those is on the outside?
Yep.
One of those is on the
customer service point. Yep.
One is on the inside near to a power point or somewhere.
Yes, it needs to be near a power point. Yes.
What is in between the two?
What, that little thing on the side there?
What is in between the outside box and the inside box?
It's the fibre cable. That one there comes out of the splicing point and then goes through a little hole into the back of this OpenReach box.
Right, so that would mean an engineer installing, and it will have to happen soon, full fibre in my house will have to run a fibre through a roof space, which is okay. It's bordered, it's lit, At the moment, it's full of stuff. Do they actually send someone to do a site survey first, or they just turn up on the day and start sucking their teeth, going, "Ooh, this is a big job"?
That can depend. They turn up on the day and you have to discuss it with them what you want to do. If it's a third-party contractor, they often have only a limited time to do the working because they're paid by the job, and they only get paid something like about £1.16 for every job they do or something. So they often only get half an hour for a job or something. If it's a proper open reach engineer, they can sometimes spend a bit more time on it. If it's going, you want to, you remember, you don't have to have, this normally has to be fitted low on the building. They won't put it high up. They won't put the customer splice point high up because they have to be able to access it. That's the bit they normally have to spend the time if they have to do a repair to the fibre. That's where they do most of it. The internal box can be run as a cable. Sometimes it's just placed directly behind that customer service point, if it or very, very close to it. Sometimes they'll put it in where, in my case, you can't see it, but there's another one there. I had a master socket, an old master socket from a works line my employer provided, and they ran it through the same hole to save them to drill another hole.
Hang on a minute. You initially said that between the outside box and the inside box was a fibre.
Yep.
Just then seemed to imply you used the word cable, I think.
They can actually, depending on the situation, they can sometimes put the cable that would normally go from the open thing to the interior one. They can connect it either via a very small loop and have a small hole, say here or something, and go into your device, or they can, in some cases, I think they have a little hole in the back of the thing where they can put it through so it's directly on behind it on the inside of your property. The boxes do not have to be, if they're coming through overhead cable, which I think in your case it does, they would use the connection across to the top of your property. Whether they put it through the loft space would depend on whether it's boarded, where they consider it safe to have access to it.
Well, it would be safe, but the thing is, it takes time to clear, and I would want to be prepared.
Right, yeah.
If somebody just turns up and says, "Well, I've got 20 minutes," and it's going to take me 20 minutes to clear the bloody roof space, you know.
No, you get a date for when they're planning to come, and you normally book a morning or afternoon slot, and so you normally get a notice of when they're coming. They normally get it could be a week. If it's a new install, it could be a week to a fortnight. They usually give you a range of dates you can pick.
It's just a matter of not doing something I don't need to do. But at the moment, through that roof space is a broadband cable, because the master socket, for some historical reasons, is actually downstairs, and I don't use it, and it's effectively a broadband extension upstairs.
Right.
It comes at the outside of the house and then up and through that roof space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it can depend on the engineer that comes out. I call them engineer, the installer, they tend to call them nowadays. If it's a third-party one, it will depend if they have a limited time, if they have so many calls to do in a day or whatever. If they can't do it, they'll say, "No, we can't do it," and they'll rearrange it, another person to come out who can do it.
I'd be okay with that. The guy who actually, it was a subcontractor who put in the current arrangement.
Yeah.
And he was a nice enough lad, but frankly, not very good.
Yeah, well, mine was a subcontractor and he was quite happy to do it, but didn't move stuff around and do that. He was quite happy, cut down the old copper stuff and all the rest of it. But we were the first, me and the neighbour were the first people on the estate to get the full fibre, so we probably spent more time doing it, I don't know.
Did you get a badge?
but it can depend. Apparently, it can depend on the open region. Some are very flexible, some are not so flexible. Some can be very picky about the climbing up ladders and all the rest of it. Same as when they want to put the ladder up to connect your connection at the top of your property. They will ask to put safety hooks into the wall to attach their ladder to. That's a legal requirement for health and safety reasons. They have to do that.
Well, thankfully, my property is not very high, and the access point up the wall is not very high. No. Anyway, that's all useful stuff. By the way, just a little anecdote that last year, Next Fibre put in fibre down our street, and then outside each property and the pavement, close to the people's gardens, is a little access point, like a sort of little hatchway, a little metal cover or something, or plastic cover, shaped rather like a fat coffin.
Yeah,
and after they did all that and dug the pavements, the council then sent their contractors to resurface the pavements.
Yeah.
Can you guess where this is going?
Yeah.
So there was an access point outside my house, and now there probably still is, but you can't see it because it's probably under half an inch of black stuff.
Yeah. Some providers like Next Fibre will use existing open reach ducting if there's ducting available. Some you pole they can get away with it, but they put their own kit on there. The other thing is they can put their own ducting in and put what they call Toby holes in, which are little.
Yeah, they just dug all the pavements up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, put a little thing.
Meanwhile, OpenReach found that some of their ducts were blocked. So what they've done is they've got the odd telegraph pole to jump the fibre across the road to bypass the blocked ducts.
That's right. That's what they tend to do if they can.
And it just so happens one of these poles is right across the road to my house.
Yep, that can happen. It saves a lot of money. They say putting a new pole in is about 400 quid, while digging up to repair for the civils of £2,500 minimum.
But after they put the pole in, there's a little notice stapled to it.
Oh, right.
Giving you information how you could object to the pole.
Yeah.
After they put it in.
Yeah, well, they've connected. They've run at the top of the pole will be what they call a CBT, a connection block terminal. I think that terminator. I think that's what, and that can have 8 or 12 connectors, which they usually work out how many people connected off that pole already will be for number CBT, and they run the cable from that fibre connector block to your CSP to the top of your property. Try and use the same route if possible.
This will probably happen in the next couple of months. So anyway, thanks for that, Chris. All useful stuff. Thank you. I'll shut up now.
Yeah.
Looking at the picture of the internal.
Okay, let me stop sharing and
sharing.
Your handsome face features.
You're sharing.
Yeah. I've got 2 questions I see, so let's just quickly say. Not been told by ATA for everyone. Right, they will provide ATAs for people who usually vulnerable people, but not necessarily for everybody else. Could they expect that to be? Because they're not responsible for the phone services. Basically, all they're going to be responsible for is for the broadband services. If you get their digital voice, then you will possibly be offered a ATA, or they'll probably try and push you to get a digital phone, which has a lot more features and it's almost like a deck phone, but it's digital instead of analog technology. Well, Peter, you would, if you think that I wouldn't be too far. Plusnet have certainly been moving quite a few people, area by area by postcode. It appears from some of the reports I've been reading in the last 48 hours. They've been moving people around, but if you're concerned, best thing to do is ring up Plusnet customer services and they can sort of look into what's happening. Plusnet may be sending out emails, or they may send out a letter or a letter telling it it's happened. They're doing various things, but they are tend to meet people by postcode thing. But if you have any question, any doubts, ring up Plusnet in your case. And that I know several people who are on Plusnet have been moved to SOTAP, so I know it has been happening. But that was over Warrington Way. Yeah, so they seem to be doing area by area.
Chris, what happens if you have an existing fibre to the cabinet service for both broadband and telephone landline, and you move out, sell your flat, and someone else moves in? Does the service just continue?
No, if I don't understand it, no. They'll be moved, if they want to keep the broadband service, they'll be moved to Sugar, whatever you want to pronounce it. It's a single order generic internet access, and they have to sort the phone service out themselves, because the combined service is no longer being rolled out to new people in most parts of the country.
So if someone's on ADSL at the moment and they ask to go to fibre to the cabinet, they'll be told they can't keep their analogue line.
If they're on ADSL, if there is no fibre to the cabinet available, or full fibre available, that would be the they normally be trying to be pushed towards full fibre. Then they'd be possibly offered ADSL, which is basically SOTAP and ADSL on top, to maintain them on a temporary basis until one of the full fibre is available. It depends. A lot of it can depend on where you are, but basically any of the old. You can't get an analog phone service anymore. You've not been able to get one since 2023, September 2023. And it depends on whether your exchange is on a stop sell as to whether your only options are full fibre or SOGO service. That's one of the reasons one of the websites I put on the link there, that first one. And it's useful if you happen to know your UPRN, unique property reference number. There is a website where you can put your address in, and it will provide your unique property reference number, which is a unique number for your property. That's where some of the fun starts with some of the flats and that, because where some places have been converted from a single property into multiple flats or whatever on different floors, sometimes the records only show one. And they post to base their address information on the Royal Mail database, but at one time they didn't converge. They had two separate records, and it got messy. There's been quite a few people who've had problems with that, where they've looked for their address, say it's flat 2, but it's on the Royal Mail references as 2 flat or something silly like that. And it does then cause, that's where fun and games start, because they got offered the wrong information.
Chris?
Thanks for that. Lovely.
Chris?
Yeah.
Can I refer you to the picture of your ONT again? There's a green cable on the left-hand side. What is that?
The green cable on the left-hand side of that picture, that was the optical cable, which actually just loops back into where's it gone? Let's look at the box on the ground. That's the fibre cable. It actually comes out of the. In my particular case, they've got it coming out of that green cable because they had a problem with the hole they were trying to reuse, and it's basically in my case it's the fibre cable. In my case, because I had a problem with the feeding the cable directly through the hole, the old hole that was in there from my old master socket, they made it use a fibre cable from the bottom of the ONT to feed it manually back down through the hole. It was just instead of using all internal, they did it with an external cable looping back through the hole. I don't think it shows on the picture now. I'm not using the big enough picture for that. Basically, where the cable coming from the CSP into the fibre cable from the CSP going into the back of the ONT, they had a problem because they were trying to reuse my old hole where I had a master socket. Yeah. When they took the old master socket off to replace it, they found the hole was much too big and not being drilled properly originally. It being hidden by the box they put on. So they had to feed it through outside the new ONT box and back into the optical socket. They could connect it from internal or from external. They had two ways to feed into the ONT. Again,
I don't understand how that green cable has to go to the outside box somehow.
Yeah, that's right. It goes. In my case, I'm going to pull.
How does a thick cable like that get through the wall?
It's not. It's actually quite a thin cable. It's almost like the power cable, very thin. See that?
Yeah, but the plug on the end is quite big, and the plug would have to go through the hole.
No, let me share the screen again a second. Share screen again. It is right. That green cable goes round and loops up onto that little white cable. And then it's a shielded cable. You can't see it, but it actually goes back through the hole. In fact, they used the other box hole because it was thinner to feed back out, and then it came up to here. It's just a different shielding cable. They just linked it together.
The white cable is the one that comes from the outside box.
That's right. It's actually fact they've connected it through my old. Looking at it, they've actually connected it through my other.
Okay.
Could have two.
How does that end up as the green cable? There must be a connector.
Yeah, but all the green cable is just like the Ethernet port. It's just a cover, a protective sleeve.
The green cable seemed to have an anti sort of kink.
Yeah, I don't know what I can. Hang on, let's see if I can bring the picture up. I don't know what to bring it up. I'll bring it up. I don't know what. Don't think I can. No, I can't that way. Let me see if I can find the other picture, the original picture.
So that green cable probably appears unusually fat in that photo, simply because there's the kind of anti-kink.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's just the way they have to do it because they were trying to protect the cable.
Yeah.
I've forgotten, to be honest, that they'd actually have to do it that way. 2-3 years ago since it's been in, I haven't had to touch it since. So I'll see if I've got the other photograph here. Because it's under the desk here, it's a bit difficult to get at. So where is it? Boom, 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 boom. Oh, hold on. Wrong server. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong server there. That's right. I've got edited. That one's probably a better one. Right. Okay. Too big a zoom at the moment. That's better. Right. I'll just switch the screen I'm showing it on. Oops, sorry, where are we? Oops. Open it up again. Square screen. That one, that's it. There you are. There you can see now the green cable join up while it loops up.
Oh, right. Yes, yes, I see.
Yeah, so it's just a protective sleeve.
An untidy loop of cable there.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, so the final question is, if the man comes to install this box and you can't agree on the route or where it's got to go, what happens? If I want it in one place, if I want it in one place and he says he's not going to put it there, what happens?
Queensbury rules.
Sorry, I didn't catch that question fully. Sorry, my fault.
Okay. If the installer comes
Yeah.
and you say, I want the box here,
Yeah.
into the box, and he says, I'm not going to do it, what happens next?
They usually say, well, can't do that in the time, or there's a problem, or they can't. So for some safety reason, they normally have to tell you why. They'll usually tell you have to be near some power supply or something like that if you haven't. But you can use an extension socket for it, by the way. That's something a lot of people don't realise, to get around it. If they say it won't do, they usually refer it back to the internet provider, and then have to rearrange another appointment or whatever for a different engineer to come out.
But is there some sort of adjudication process? Who gets the upper hand? They do, presumably.
Well, what will normally happen if it's a third-party contractor, they're the ones that will usually be the ones that might refuse it. It will get referred back, and they'll probably send out an actual open reach engineer to deal with the problem, who usually have more time to deal with the issue.
I was thinking not in terms of time, but like Richard said, they might not want to go through the loft, or they might not want to put a ladder in a certain place, or they might want to. They might.
Well, normally,
I'm going to crawl around in that cupboard.
Yeah, the principal problem is they have to comply with certain health and safety rules. Yeah. If they need to go up high, things if they go up on the telegraph pole, they have to have certain safety precautions, straps and all sorts of things. And when they're going up outside the building, to get to my access point where my cable came across, because I'm lower down than parts of the building, they had to have it as high as possible. They had to put the ladder up, and they had to drill. I think it was one hole to attach the safety strap bolt around the ladder. That's not normally a problem. They try to avoid it, but they are supposed to do that. If they don't, then and they get seen by their supervisor or whatever, they come around, they can lose their job instantly. It's a dismissal job. So outside contractors are being very, very careful about sticking to the rules. They don't want to lose their job.
I've quite a sympathy with that, because two of my brothers-in-law suffered unpleasant accidents on ladders, and they knew what they were doing. And I'm talking in a professional capacity. Ladders I won't go up ladders now.
Yeah,
they're horrible things.
Like I have a fear of, strange enough, I fly on a plane quite happily, but I have a fear of heights.
Yeah, I get dizzy on a high curb.
No. Once somebody wanted to show me something wrong on the roof, and I was finding it very uneasy about climbing the ladder to see what they were trying to point out to me. Yeah. But I quite happily go on a plane and go 6,000 feet and not back an eyelid. But
that's different. You're not going to fall.
Unless you're plane crashing.
You've probably noticed that most window cleaners now do not use ladders.
But no. Yeah, the rule about the loft is whether it's safe, whether they feel it's fully boarded, got a ladder to it, a safe ladder and all the rest of it. That is down to the individual to whether they consider it to be safe. Sometimes you can help yourself by some people being known to put in a blue, what they call a blue cable. Don't know why they call it blue, but blue rope cable to help pull the fibre through from where it comes in at the loft to where it needs to go downward into your room or whatever. That sometimes they say, oh yeah, thanks for that. That saves a lot of work. We just pull the cable through and that's it. Often they'll do that. So you meet them halfway, basically. They can often get round a lot of these problems. You can get round. So there are always ways around the problem, but it's usually the third-party contractors who have to work to a very tight margin. They get the contracts from OpenReach to do work for some company. And some people like Sky have their own engineers who will do it, and they will do rule. They work to a different set of rules. It's like they wouldn't actually replace, when I had a Sky dish, they wouldn't go onto the roof to replace the Sky dish that was attached to the chimney, because it no longer met their safety regulation. They want to only attach it to a high pole on the side of the property. They were not allowed to go on the roof.
Can I ask one thing?
Yeah.
I live in a block of flats, and
Yeah.
OpenReach have offered to put in full fibre,
Ooh.
and the management company has approved the wayleave, but they're dragging their feet, and they say, please don't keep chasing us. We'll let you know when we're going to do it. How can we put pressure on them to do it? Who do we go through? Because we can't talk to them properly because they're not our provider.
The simplest way would be to, if you're just going through, who's saying that they're somebody from OpenReach themselves that's sort of trying to delay it and not do the work?
They've come and they've done a survey. They've said they'll put it in free of charge. They've done a detailed plan. And then we say that was a year ago. And when we say to them, when are you going to do it? They say, oh, don't keep chasing us, but we'll let you know when we're going to do it. Well, how do we move it on?
Okay, the simplest way would be to send an email to the chief exec of OpenReach, who recently changed, but you can find the addresses on the CEO website with CEO addresses, and they'll pass it to their escalation. They'll pass it to their executive escalation department, or whatever they call it nowadays. They've actually been enhancing that recently. The new CEO boss has been so you might find you'll get a personal contact in the escalation department, and they will then sort out coordinating it, and you might find you get it installed in a matter of days, weeks. Like I got the full estate because I sent an email directly to OpenReach chief exec on a Sunday, no less. It's all in that article. On a Sunday, the week before the coronation, and he replied to me personally within 10 minutes from his iPhone, arranged to contact his chief network engineer for the whole country. He contacted me half an hour later to verify my postcode. The following day, I had a personal contact on the bank holiday. I had a contact from the chief exec's escalation team. And within a week, we had survey teams round to check all the ducting and everything else.
Okay. How do I find the chief execs?
There is a website. Let me see if I can find it on this machine. If I still got it. 2 seconds. I'm just firing up a web browser. See if I've still got it.
I remember a saying a friend of mine came up with, which it's the squeaky door that gets the oil. If you follow what I mean.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Make a nuisance of yourself. Squeaky door that gets the oil.
Can't find it.
Squeaky door that gets the oil.
Someone goes into want to use it. I'll do a quick search. CEO. Email addresses.
Presumably, they don't.
Right, okay. The addresses, it's www.ceoemail.com.
Oh, okay, thanks. I'm sure they don't want people to know this.
You'll find all hundreds of companies on there, and advice on how to contact them and all the rest of it. Got schools, colleges, police, chief constables, you name it, NHS, charities, schools, even overseas stuff. So you can find them all on there. They should be on there.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Chris.
Yeah. See if tell us how you get on. We're always interested to see how you get on with that.
Thanks.
They don't particularly like you doing it, but it's a common way of getting something sorted out, of being a delay or your property being missed or whatever. And I see Peter W just posted the address for finding the UPRN, and some council put it on their tax bill. Yeah, that's a fair comment. For that one, it's www.findmyaddress.co.uk for anybody who's after that. I'll add that onto the slide when I put it on the thing. So I'll just remind myself what the address is. I'll make a quick note of it myself to remind myself.
The other thing, Chris, was that I did a talk in, I think it was April, and it's been videoed, and there is a YouTube link for it, but there's nothing on the website to say what the link is or what the talk was about or anything. Last sort of previous meeting is March 2025. So there's no previous meetings after March 2025 on the website, and there's no way for anyone to find my video unless they actually know it's there and go and look for it on YouTube.
Rick, do you want to answer that one? Rick, are you there? Oh, right. All right, you're going to leave me to it. Yes, we know. It's similar connection to the reason we've asked you to resend those articles to us. It's connected to the same issue.
Well, I hope the articles are useful, because I sent about 8 or 9 to you.
Yes, I know. My sub-editor's going through them all. He's on holiday at the moment. He's going to work through them all. I'm producing the June newsletter. Well, after this meeting now, I'll be starting on the June newsletter. So hopefully I'll get that in the next couple of weeks. But I say our sub-editor's on holiday at the moment. So priority is trying to get as many of the stuff out and catch a backlog up. You still get your credits for the article published and all the rest of it. So yes, the more the merrier article. Sorry about the problem with that, but
don't worry.
I'm not going to go into
these things happen.
Basically, there's been a problem. It's coming up on our committee meeting about that. We know it. There's only one person who can update the website for that area, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's all right.
At the moment, anyway. Any change we do to it get reverted back to the original automatically. So it's a problem we're trying to solve. But anyway, that's not the only area it's wrong. I don't know where anybody noticed it on the front page. It actually says March 25 newsletter, but in the actual text it says March 2023. I noticed that the other day. But anyway, one of those things that slipped through. But yes, we're aware of that problem thing. But if you go to the link, that's why I put on the announcement link, the WROCC subscribe thing, so you can go to it and get to it. All the stuff on the website and on the YouTube channel that Ruth maintains for us. They're all there. And so I might actually just publish them all next month in the newsletter. That's something I might add on the list as well. So give me a good point to put out. Okay, any other general questions? So hopefully you're all going to change yourself, get yourself onto digital voice phone calls if you want to keep your phone call. But personally, I think I got rid of mine and went straight to using my mobile. Sorry, Rick?
Sorry about that. My phone suddenly burst into life and I had trouble stopping it.
Oh, right. Do you want to stop the recording or something?
Yeah, thanks for that. All good, interesting stuff.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll be hearing from you. You've been migrated. Oh, one thing, PlusNet do not do phone lines anymore.
They don't do what?
PlusNet will only do broadband only for full fibre and sugar.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I've actually got an email from them today, which I'm looking into, which I think is to do with going full fibre. I'm still on fibre to the cabinet, but because everybody's gone to full fibre, there's no contention. I actually get a superb download rate, more than my needs.
Yeah,
but obviously the fibre to the cabinet's not going to be forever. Anyway,
Yeah.
right, let's just go for just
yeah, I've had to move to EE because I wanted a lower price, but at the time, now PlusNet are doing even better rates. So obviously they've been losing, but they're pushing more people who want to keep a voice line to EE with the company.